It's another presidential election year, and you know what that means. Time to pick a side! But does it really have to be this way? Must people define themselves solely as either Democrats or Republicans or as liberals or conservatives? Is it really that difficult for people to appreciate the best of both worlds and be a socially liberal, fiscally conservative, independent thinker who votes on issues and policies instead of party lines and personalities? For anyone who geeks out on politics like I do, I'm sure you've heard the saying, if you're not a liberal in your 20s, you have no heart. But if you're not a conservative by your 30s, you have no brain. I'd like to add to that age-old saying, if you haven't figured out that there's a time and place to be liberal and a time and place to be conservative by your 40s, you're being subtly indoctrinated by news sources confirming your biases, which we all have. But I hope this video and this little cartoon will help you see past those hardened, calcified biases that I myself have had a hard time getting over. Now, don't get me wrong. There are a couple of biases I would like to keep, such as my bias for freedom and seeking out the truth. Yet I'd like to think that I've changed my mind about some issues, such as how much government involvement is needed in times of crises, such as this COVID-19 pandemic. I used to be an extremely limited government card-carrying libertarian, but I have no problems following the social distancing and stay-at-home orders issued by our governments to contain the spread of a virus that is 10 times more lethal than the common flu. And as of the making of this video, over 58,000 Americans have died from COVID-19 in just over a month. There are certain issues like these that can't be solved by free market principles alone. And it's times like these that require recalibrating your worldview. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. And it's interesting how now there is yet another liberal conservative divide regarding the coronavirus. But of course, Democrats, for the most part, not all, but most Democrats want to keep the country shut down per Dr. Fauci's orders. And most Republicans, not all, but true to form, most Republicans want to open up the economy and get back to work. To a large degree, the whole point I'm trying to make is that both the Democrats and Republicans are right on this. We do need to preserve lives, and we do need to open up the economy. Clearly, this coronavirus is 10 times more deadly, and it's imperative to save lives. But if we completely crater our economy, just as many, if not more, lives will be lost. And it's interesting also to see that there's a strain of conservatism to Democrats on this issue since they're trying to conserve life, while there's a strain of liberalism to the Republicans who want to open up the economy. See, this is how we are all a little bit liberal and a little bit conservative, one way or another, depending on the issue. But it's a shame. It's a shame how we allow ourselves to be blinded to all we have in common and our natural impulses to be liberal or conservative from time to time. And it's a crying shame how easily we can be divided by disingenuous, opportunistic career politicians, or even greasy, unethical businessmen who give capitalism a bad name. This is how we give away power to govern our own lives as we see fit. And there's always going to be someone out there who could not care less about being liberal or conservative, but they'll take advantage of it. Speaking of which, it's time to either be liberal to the idea of electing a new president or be conservative about keeping an incumbent one. And this year, once again, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel. On the Republican ticket, we've got a buffoonish, dim-witted, sociopathic narcissist who behaves like a schoolyard bully trapped inside the body of a 70-something-year-old. I'm amazed Trump has been embraced by conservatives and even evangelicals simply over his supposed pro-life stance on abortion. Now, I'm just speculating, but considering the amount of wives Trump has sped through and the grossly overpriced hookers he's cheated on them with, I'm willing to bet Trump's paid for an abortion or two in his life. But then again, I'm just guessing. I'm just assuming, and I'm even surmising, just to keep myself from getting sued for libel or slander. And now, who's the other choice the Democrats have to offer in our two-party, winner-takes-all supposed democratic system? Joe Biden, an even older white guy in his late 70s, who spent most of his life as a career politician and is clearly going senile. But you wouldn't know that depending on which media outlets you get your news from, such as CNN or MSNBC, who keep carrying water for the Democrat Party's despicably disingenuous skullduggery. But even assuming Joe Biden isn't going entirely senile, he's known for his touchy-feely ways with women. So I'm curious to see how the Democrats are going to weasel their way out of these new allegations by Tara Reade of Joe Biden's sexual harassment, while still holding true to their virtue-signaling social justice credo. Perhaps it'll be all water under the bridge once he compensates by making sure he chooses a female vice president because he needs to score brownie points with supposed progressives who are anything but truly progressive, let alone truly liberal about free speech. But I will exercise my free speech and my freedom to read most anything I want, such as this article titled How Grief Became Joe Biden's Superpower by Politico, and the link is down below if you want to judge for yourself. It's about how Joe Biden turned the tragic story of his wife and child killed in a car accident in 1972 into a false accusation about the driver being drunk when he was not. The accident was just that, an accident. Even though I feel a little slimy myself for bringing this up, I think it's critical to know this about someone who wants to be not only in the highest elected office in our country, but arguably one of the most powerful men in the world if he gets the job. If that is true about Joe Biden, if it is true that he tarnished the family of the man who crashed into his wife's car just to gain sympathy points for grief in order to stay in power, basically, it speaks volumes of the type of people who seek power and the type of people who help them get into power. This is why Democrats are being outed for the power-hungry, elitist class of wealthy people who've mostly either inherited their wealth or they married into it or they acquired it by ill-begotten means, and why we as a nation have collectively railed against them and railed against establishment Republicans as well, who are not entirely to be trusted either. And this, of course, is why we've ended up with this horny toad from the swamp he's supposed to drain. It's a tremendous disgrace, but what can you do? It's political tribalism at its finest. Have fun picking a side come this November, and thanks for watching.